I want to take a few minutes to talk about how to use LINQ, LINQ, and an expression to search a collection of things. I'll start off with this. I've got this library class, and it has a collection inside of it. This is a collection. It is a list of book type that I called books. Books is a collection of singular book. Books was something I set, this is a variable name I came up with, to represent a list of singular book. If I look at a book has a singular title and a singular author. One book has one title and one author. If I have a list of book, this is like an array of book, a bunch of books together. It's a collection of singular book. So I could have 13 books in this collection. I could have 144 books in this collection. I can have 0 books in this collection. But books here represents a bunch of singular book or an array of book. If I want to query that books, I can use LINQ, LINQ. So what I want to show you is that this library class is a model for an ASP.NET application, and we use it inside of our view. This is a web page. And at the top of that view, we say, hey, our model is of type, the model that's coming into this page in our ASP.NET MVC app is a library. So this is a library class, this is our model, and what's coming into our view is an instance of library. And this page, basically what it's doing is it's showing the it's getting the first book in our collection. So it says I create a new variable called first book, and I pull out of our model, out of that list of books, the first one. And I also set a variable for the last book. From our model, a list of books, get the last one. And it's populated, our model gets populated by our controller. So this is a lot of code right here, but the point I want to pull out is I've got a few books. Here's one book represented in line 18 through 20. And then I add that book to the collection. Here's another book, book 2, that's represented in lines 23 through 25. And I add that book to the collection, to the same collection of books. So when the code gets to this line, it's going to have 2 books in it. And then as you can see down here, it's going to add a 3rd book to that collection and a 4th book to that collection. And by the time it gets to my view, when I'm sending that whole entire library, it's going to have 4 books in it. So back on my view, it's going to grab the first book and it's going to grab the last book, which is book 1 for the first book and book 4 for the last book. And then it's going to, in this case, it's just going to show a table and a row with the first book. So I would expect to see whatever I populated as the first book, which is Steve is Cool, in our view. And to make this simpler, I'm going to kind of take some of this other code out. But this is a row of data inside of our table. It's getting the first book, its author, and the first book, its title. And I'm going to go ahead and run this. And I'm waiting for it. What you can see is I have a table and I added some styling around it. It's got a little yellow border around the table, and in each cell has a green border. Each column has a green border. And I see the first column has my author, my second column has my title, and this is created by by the syntax over here. Give me the first book's author, gives me the first book's title, and put it inside of a table. I purposefully left a third cell blank, and that's what's making this third box over here. But if I wanted to make another row to show the last book, I'm going to use last book here. I'm going to say give me the last book's author and title. I'm going to save that and run and refresh. And I'm going to get another row, and I see Caitlin. Caitlin is cool because the last book that was added was that book. The last book that was added to that collection was that book. What I want to do is I want to show an example of how to pull out of our collection using a LINQ, how to pull out some of these middle books. Because in our syntax, in our LINQ syntax, I can't find the, let's just say, the second book. I can't do the same thing I was doing up above. There is no .second function. It doesn't exist. And there's no, even though it hasn't shown me an error yet. There it goes. It says I don't know what second is. I know what first is, and I know what last is, but those are the only two that it gives you for real easy access to the first and last items in a list. But to get to a specific one, I have to write what's called an expression, and I'm going to show you what that. I'm going to type that out first, and then we'll walk through what it means. I'm going to create a second book variable, and I'm going to pull from our model of our books. I'm going to find one where a single book in the collection, where its author is equal to Tony. And the part that is LINQ is this where statement. LINQ gives us first and last and where. It gives us a number of other ones, but these are some common ones. Where requires an expression where a single book inside of our list of books where the author is Tony. And this is kind of read like, given a single book, find where that book's author is set to Tony. I could also write other syntax. I could have said where the book's title is, I'm going to put it in gibberish. At this point in time, the second book, it wouldn't find anything. There is no book where the title is a bunch of gibberish. If I go back over to my home controller, I've only set titles on certain books, or I've set titles on books, and none of those titles are gibberish. But if I wanted to find this book right here, the third book, I might say find me the title where it's Alexis is Cool. So I'll come over here and replace it. Now my second book it finds would be, it would create a second book variable by looking in my collection of books and finding a single item, a single book with the title of this condition, this string. I don't know, let me go back over here. Actually, this is probably our third book, right? So I'm going to go up over here and update this to third book. And the reason why that is because I'm looking back over my home control. I actually have book 3 that has that title. So I'm going to say in our view, our third book is any book where, any single book where the title is this. Maybe, just to keep it simple, I'm going to go back to author. And I can have a second book as well. And the second book is written by Tony. So you can tell how it's easy to get the first one using LINQ. It's easy to get the last one using LINQ. In order to get any of the items in between, I kind of have to use a query statement to, this is called a lambda expression. to get a specific book to query for a specific book I'm looking for. Now, this first book, I could have called anything. It's just saying I'm going to give a variable name to a single item inside of books. For instance, just to give you an idea, and this is probably bad form, is to make it the letter I. And all this is saying inside of books, there's a single item that I'm going to represent as I. I, in this case, is going to be a single book where its author is set to Tony. I think it's much easier to read by giving it a friendlier name to use. This makes more sense to me. Inside of my books collection, there's a single book. Find me where that book's author is set to Tony. Same thing here in this third book. Look in the model, in that collection, that list of books, and find one where a single book, where that book's author is Alexis. And this will return, this could return many. Maybe I have lots of books that have author of Alexis. But sometimes I'm just looking for the first one. And in my case, I know I only have one book that has that condition. So this where statement is really good to use to where you want to query your books collection or any collection of things, list of things, where a certain condition is met. This equals greater than sign is not really read as equals greater than. It's not using a mathematical operator. It's just an indication of what this book means. So for a single book, go find the book's author that equal to Tony. Again, it's a friendly name, so I could have put in anything in here. I could have put in a variable called the letter B. And all of a sudden, if I were just use B over here, it doesn't know what book is anymore over here. And that's because this is what's declaring the variable to use over on this side of this equals greater than. So if I have to use B over here, I say for any given item inside of this books, and I'm going to call that item B, find where that author is equal to Tony. It's much easier to read when you have a friendlier name. Hopefully that helps you understand how to query a list of things. This books is a list of book where a certain condition is met. This is called a lambda expression on the inside of this. This is a lambda expression. This is a LINQ function, LINQ function. First and last are LINQ functions as well. One of the things you can do is, I said you can use this where statement, and it can return many books with the author of Tony. It'll return all the books, any books with the author of Tony. It'll return a collection itself. Sometimes a better way of writing it is saying, I expect a single book coming back that's going to have a author of Tony, or I'm going to expect a single book, that means one item where the author is Alexis, or I can say give me the first one where the book is author is Tony, or the first book's author is Alexis. Hopefully that helps you understand how to query. This is still an expression, a lambda expression. It happens to be inside of a LINQ function. And the lambda expression is inside of the function's parentheses. Here's the open parentheses, here's the closed parenthesis. I'm going to take the lambda expression out just for a second. That lambda expression exists right inside of the parentheses. And understanding that this is the condition it's looking for, based off of the specific variable name that represents one item in the collection it's searching.